Hello, H-Town Rundown listeners. I'm here with my boy AD. I got my boy Coach, and I'm here with a very special guest, Jackson Gatlin from the Houston Locked On Rockets over there. Yeah, let's give it up. Let's give it up.
Yeah,
Let's
it's a
go
jam.
right to the intro.
Nah, we're not doing all that. I don't know about that, guys.
Hello, everybody. It's your usual host, Preston Simpson here. You can follow me at Drip. That's 2piece_GAWD on the X app as well as Instagram. Before the show, my boy AD. He's the H-Town Rundown boy. You can also follow him at Bully60. He's got X and Instagram as well. And be sure to follow my boy Coach Dante, the sports library book boy over there at Coach Dante 31 on X as well as his YouTube channel. He pops off over there all the time. And of course, follow his XF at Coach Dante 31. And then we've got our boy, Jackson Gatlin. Thank you, man, for hopping on today. He is your media credential host over there at the Locked On Rockets. He also does Locked On NBA for Mondays, as well as a couple of things he got going on there. Jackson, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here, man. Yeah, yeah, for real.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here, y'all. And I didn't want that intro to stop. That intro was straight fire. Whoever made that, like shout out. Who was that? Was that Dante? Was that AD?
AD.
All right, AD. That was fire, man. Great intro. I wish that I could use like the highlight footage and stuff on the LOR YouTube channel. I can't for like certain copyright restrictions and stuff. It's above my pay grade, but the video was fire. I love it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. We're doing a lot of new things out over here. But we give a big shout out to AD for that. But Jackson, we do appreciate you hopping on, man. It's gonna be a fun episode, guys. So we got a lot to talk about. We talked about the Houston versus Grizzlies L and the poor energy that was brought out for that one. That was just absolutely terrible. And then we'll talk about some of the All-Star festivities that happened over there, as well as the post-All-Star break expectations going forward for the organization and players. So let's just jump right into the Grizzlies L, right? Not great. We ended up losing this game 113-121. However, there were a couple standout players, of course. Amin Thompson, who played 33 minutes. He had 19 points, 2 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block, filling up the stat sheet. And he went 60% from the field, 60% from 3, and he made 75% of his free throws, which is really nice. Then Aaron Holiday, 30.5 minutes, 19 points, 2 boards, and assist and a steal, which is really nice to see. Aaron Holiday has been fantastic off the bench for us. But guys, let's break down this L, man. Let's start with the energy. Jackson, start us off with the energy of the game, and then we'll go forward from there.
Well, I think it's just kind of this concerning trend that we've seen from this team this entire season, where they are a completely different team when they're on the road versus when they're at home. And that's understandable, right? That, home court advantage, the home crowd, like you're in your own routine when you're at home, you're sleeping in your own bed. Like there's all these little intangibles, all these little variables that are hard to quantify. And that's why, home court advantage is a very real thing. And that's why we've seen this team play so well at home this season, but it doesn't quite compute. It doesn't make sense the way that we see them completely drop off the face of the planet, it seems, when they go on the road. And a big part of that, and Ime Udoka has addressed this time and time again this season, is their inability to start games with the right energy or matching the physicality of the opposing team. And I do think that this one with the Grizzlies, as banged up as they were going into this game, still had 6 guys out due to injury, missing their best players. No Ja, no Desmond Bane. Yeah, they had Triple J back, but this is a Grizzlies roster that is absolutely ravaged by injuries. The Rockets had zero excuse to come out flat the way that they did. And I wonder if it was one of those things where it's kind of like a trap game where the Grizzlies were so missing so many different guys due to injury that the Rockets kind of rolled in there like, it's the Grizzlies. We're going to win this game. No problem. Right. And then like they get the early start, right? GG Jackson has the great first half. Luke Kennard is on fire from 3 early. And they're kind of looking up the scoreboard like, wait a minute, we're supposed to be the ones winning this game, not you guys.
They ass. Why they beat our ass?
Yeah. And so it was one of those where I think they kind of like, they realized after a really atrocious, like lackluster first quarter, they kind of locked in and started playing some solid basketball. But the problem the rest of the way was just offensively, this was easily one of the worst offensive performances up and down the entire roster all season long. Like we saw Alperen Sengun missing some shots that he normally very easily makes. We saw Jalen Green, who is almost a non-factor in this game, just 4 points, 2 of 7 shooting, was largely benched for the majority of the second half. Jabari was 3 of 13. We saw Dylan Brooks go back to like, Memphis Dylan Brooks. Quite literally, he was in Memphis and he was like, you know what? All right, I'm going to play like Memphis Dylan Brooks. And that was the version of Dylan Brooks that we didn't want to see in a Rockets jersey. So it was a lot of bad all kind of coinciding. And it just sucks that this loss happened like right before the All-Star break, because you really are just like crawling into the All-Star break, like just barely survived. And now you got to deal with, this bad taste in your mouth as you're supposed to start what is supposed to be your like, your spring break if you're an NBA player, basically.
All right. I want to say this. Luke Kennard is the Rockets killer. I don't care what team he's on, whether it's the Pistons, the Clippers, wherever he's been and he's played the Rockets, it's like he has the green light to go off. Just point that out. But yeah. Other than that, I agree, Jackson. The energy is like they were ready for the break. It's like the kids on the last day for, like you said, spring break. That Friday before the spring break, all the kids.
Nobody's paying attention in class, man. Everybody, yeah, it's a blow off day, basically.
Homework? No.
No.
Any assignments? No.
No.
So yeah, like that. I feel like they just came in lackluster, and that's something that has to change going forward. There is no off days in the NBA. There is no cakewalk days. You can be gotten at any point in time. Any team can sneak up and get you if you come ill prepared. So I think that's something that has to change. But like you said, also offensively, we couldn't buy a bucket for anything. So it was a struggle bus all day long.
Well, I'm glad to see the energy kind of bolted up when Nate Hinton came in the game. That's when the energy started flowing. This guy coming in the game, hustling, making shots. I don't know if it was in the fourth quarter when he made a right wing 3 that was tough when the shot clock was running down. I thought he did a really good job. I thought the energy, the defense intensity went up when he came in the game. Also, Aaron Holiday has been playing some big minutes, had 19 points in the game. And Amin Thompson, man, I've been really impressed with him over the last 5 games, with his 12 point per game average. And I believe he averaged 11 rebounds. But again, these is one of those scrappy Memphis teams when you're trying to prove yourself, you want to be a part of that play-in or that playoff game. You cannot lose to these type of teams right here. And again, you got guys like GG Jackson trying to prove that he's worthy to be in this league. He's a 19-year-old kid that was hot very early in this game. And you got other guys from Memphis that's just basically out there playing. But other than that, our energy was down. When Nate Hinton came in the game in the the second to fourth quarter, that's when the energy started coming up. And I thought he really played really, really well. But in the fourth quarter, when Jaren Jackson hit those 2 threes, that was it. Those back-to-back threes, that was pretty much the ending of the ball game. Those 2 dagger threes. So again, there's no excuses to go in Memphis and lose to Memphis. But again, our energy was down pretty much in that first quarter. We got off to a bad start. It took Nate Hinton to come in the game to get everything going.
Yeah, welcome, Pastor. By the way,
surprise!
Surprise! Hello, everybody.
Pastor George is here. What's up, man? It's been a minute.
I had to come in and surprise you. They told me you was coming on. I just wanted to stop by and say what's up to you, man. It's been a long
I know,
time.
man. We go way back. That's crazy.
How you been, man?
I've been doing great. In fact, I'm digging for something here. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. Is the problem?
Yeah, I know what you're looking for.
I know you know what I'm looking for. I just don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it in time because I see it here. I just gotta figure out how to get it back on the soundboard because I took it off a minute ago. So, but yeah, I mean, Pastor George, you jump in and just say what's up, or you got some thoughts on this Grizzlies loss?
Man, the Grizzlies loss is crazy. I mean, I do, but I don't want to be so negative anymore, man. I just want to see some change, and I'm just thinking like I just want to see what's next. So I don't even want to like take too much time away from that. But I think that it's kind of hurt that we lost this game. I am not a fan of Aaron Holiday, but for him being such a plus player, showing up for us, it's just like indicative to like our current young core. And interest is doing us bad. So for me, I just want to see more. I want to see change. I want to see growth, and I want to see here you go, Jalen Green out the lineup.
Man, Pastor George is not pulling any punches. Look, and it's actually perfect timing that Pastor George shows up when we're talking about the Grizzlies loss, because we got the grit and grind Grizzlies, and Pastor George, he's a big fan of that. It's that app. I don't know how it goes. I think this is how it sounds.
Nah, grinder, brother.
Oh my God. Oh, that was a horrible time of my life.
I had to dig it up, man.
Nah, grinder, brother.
I'm sorry. I had to do it at least one time. All right.
For sure. I just want to say what's up to you, man. I got to get back out here. I got to get back to work, but I mean, I appreciate it. It's been great, man. Just chopping up with you over the year or whatever. And I appreciate you coming on. Thank you. I wish I could spend more time, but I appreciate you regardless. Thank you all, by the way, too. Thank you for bringing me up, Preston.
For sure. Catch you later, Pastor George.
Yep.
All right.
Nice little special guest, man. We always love PG up on the pod, man. PG, he got a lot of fun takes. Let me tell you that. Talk about hot. He does not. He's on.
Coming in hot.
That's what we love.
Coming in hot at all times. Look, and I know we talked about Nate Hinton and his play. I just wanted to give him a little extra shine here, because Nate's been this guy ever since U of H. I talked about it when the Rockets first had him on the summer league roster, and then it looked like he was going to be one of the guys to make it on one of the two-way slots. Like, I was always really confused why Nate Hinton never stuck to an NBA team, because a guy that he's kind of out of that, like, think like Briante Weber kind of, or like that Patrick Beverly school of just like, he's gonna bring you 110% energy every time he plays. But the thing is, he's bigger and stronger and more athletic than either of those two guys I just mentioned. And I know he's been working like crazy hard on that outside shot, because that's always been kind of the one area of his game, even back to UH, where he wasn't the best outside three-point shooter, but when he could get inside and get kind of hit to his little mid-range area, he was really effective. He was a great rebounding guard. And I'm not saying he's going to be like a staple of the Rockets rotation or anything moving forward, but I did like what he brought, right? And there's zero reason why the other guys who are actual like NBA rotation guys, right? Why the starting lineup can't bring that same level of energy that Nate Hinton brought in the minutes that he got.
I thought that's what, when we were down bad, I thought that's what got us in the game. His energy and his presence being on the court, I thought that really kept us in that game and got us back in the game. Even when we was down at halftime, we're down by double digit. When he comes back in the game, both times he comes back in the game, everything just went up, and especially on a fast break when he did get that ball, and then he took it to the rack and finished with the strong right hand layup. I thought him both times coming in the game when we down by double digit, I thought that was a big positive for us when he came in the game.
Yeah, he flipped the switch.
Yeah. And it was really nice to see. He kind of plays that from what I saw in the game, because I don't know, I haven't watched a lot of Nate Hinton ball per se. I'm not a Hinton ball watcher necessarily, but what I saw was he kind of reminded me of the Tari Eason flow. He came in when it was kind of reckless and there was a lot of carelessness, and he picked up energy. He kind of made the team cohesive during that time. He made us add a flow to the game while he was in. And he brought in the energy, like you said, Jackson, about the starters. He brought the energy that was necessary. He brought that right off the bench immediately. He kind of reminds me of that Jose Alvarado when he wasn't getting a lot of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of that type of player that's going to come in, be a nice energy guy off the bench that could potentially play minutes. Like you said, he's going around that three ball, and just I saw a lot of aggressiveness from him. He was not caring. He's like, man, who's these boys over here? He was taking it to the rack every time. He was shooting. He was playing pretty good defense. I'm pretty sure this is the first game I'd watched him like actually play. And I was astonished. I was like, man, why is he on the bench when we got Tari Eason out, we got Fred out? Why is he not getting more minutes? Especially when my boy Jalen Green is not putting up the stats that I want him to put up. And then Alperen Sengun was having that off night as well. But it was really nice to see. And but overall from the team, we shot 41% from the field. That's atrocious. We made 42 out of 102 shots. That's not great. We made 11 threes to their 15. and we made 18 free throws out of 28. You know, we're missing free throws, and that's just been the story for us all season. Is we just can't hit damn free throws. We can't hit open shots. We don't play defense. You know, sometimes our offense dictates our defense when it should be our defense dictating our offense. At the end of the day, though, you know, hopefully once we get into it, we'll talk about some changes that need, you know, some expectations going forward. But I think that's going to be all we have for this game. Anything else? Anybody? Any last minute thoughts?
Amin Thompson is awesome. We didn't spend any time talking about Amin. Amin is awesome, dude. Like if there was only one positive to come from this game, is the fact that Amin Thompson looked like the truth.
Jackson, I've been on Amin since the draft. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, look, and you know, the more that Amin plays, the more that we get a steady look at him getting, you know, 25, 30 plus 35 plus minutes or whatever. He just produces, man, and he produces at a very high level. And I think the really encouraging thing is you're already seeing the different ways in which he's able to impact a game, right? He's able to impact the game with his playmaking. He's able to impact the game with his defense. He's able to impact the game with his rebounding. All these different areas where even if he's not scoring the ball, he is still making his mark on a game in a variety of different ways. The scoring is going to come. And that's why this game was so exciting to me, because we saw him getting downhill and he was basically unguardable when he got a full head of steam. I think the thing that I really love about his offensive game, specifically when he's looking to score the ball, is he already, as a rookie, he already understands tempo and change of pace. Like watching Amin go either like full speed in transition and then ease it up right before he gets to the basket, or vice versa. He walks it up nice and slow. And then if the defense is sleeping, then he'll just turn on the jets and blow right by a guy. He's so big and so strong that once he gets that first step past you and his shoulders are past you, it's game over. And every time he got downhill against this Grizzlies team, even against a good defender in Jaren Jackson Jr., he was able to score almost at will at the bucket. That was really encouraging to see.
Yeah, I'm in as a hooper's hooper. So
yeah. He's also a really high IQ basketball player. Kind of like you said with the tempo changes. You know, I know coming in, that was kind of like one of his like draft things, right? Was that he was a high basketball player, but you know, like he's a rookie, kind of like Cam Whitmore. You know, you're like, oh, the rookie mistakes. You know, I thought there was going to be a lot of that, especially our previous rookies. You know, when we had Alpern and Jalen, you know, there was a lot of rookie mistakes that we were witnessing game in, game out. And then even last year with Jabari Smith being, you know, all around just disappointing. He did pick it up at the end of the season, but just his rookie year was very disappointing compared to expectations. It was really interesting to see, like, this year we've got a really competent point guard, especially, you know, like the point guard is probably the hardest position to play as a rookie, right? There's so much of the game you have to understand, so much of the game you have to be able to control at any given night, and he does it almost perfectly, you know, minus that 3-point shot.
And he's still got plenty of room to grow, right? Like his handle's not the best right now. It's a really loose handle. He just kind of relies on the athleticism and the size to get past his defender. There's still moments where he gets poke checked right on a drive where he's a little too carefree, a little too loose with the ball. So he's got to clean that up. And from the point guard perspective, right now, what you're seeing, right, is you're seeing just the raw playmaking and passing ability on display, where he can drive to the basket, collapse the defense, draw a second or even a third defender, collapse the paint, kick it out to the open shooter. He has some incredible passes, some incredible court vision on display pretty much each and every night that he's out there on the floor. His next step in growth and his evolution, and this is hopefully what Fred VanVleet is constantly in his ear with and teaching him, and this is one of the reasons that you would have liked, or one of the reasons that the Fred VanVleet signing made a lot of sense, is he's still learning and figuring out how to really be the point guard, the floor general on the court. There's certain possessions where, you know, a guy like Jalen or Dylan will kind of take over the ball and take over the possession and do their own thing offensively or whatever. And Amin needs to grow into that role of being able to understand and understand that his voice carries weight, especially when you're the point guard on the floor, to ask for the ball back, to call for it back, to call a set play, to make sure that you're getting the right guys involved, that you're running the right sets, that you're doing what needs to be done on the floor. And I do think that without Fred out there, without his voice to kind of corral certain guys to make sure that Dylan stays in check offensively, you're kind of seeing that bad version of Dylan Brooks start to creep up a little bit. Whereas once Fred's back in the lineup, I think Dylan will kind of understand and get back to the role that he's supposed to be playing on this team. So Amin isn't quite there yet because he's still just a rookie, but that's a role that if you're the point guard, if you're going to be the leader of the team and the floor general, you've got to embody that role all the way through all the elements of it, not just, okay, he can make some nice passes, some cool assists here and there. He's really got to be the quarterback of the team. And that's kind of the next step for him, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know, going forward, you ties it up pretty well. all in all, to sum up the Grizzlies game, to quote our favorite coach, Steven Silas, they're not getting after it. I can't slam my desk because it'll mess up my computer, but you got the soundboard?
They're getting after it like they're supposed to.
Oh wait, that's the wrong one. My bad.
Come on, now, Steven.
That's the good one. My bad. Here's the bad one.
They're not getting after it like they're supposed to.
There it is. I had edited the clip and smushed it down a little bit so that we could have like a positive version of the clip where it's like they're getting after it like they're supposed to. And so my bad. I hit the wrong ones. Technical difficulties on my end.
No, all around. Let me tell you about that. But yeah, man, it was a tough game to watch. But I'm glad that we can move forward into that. And hopefully they, I hate to see when you see a team of young guys that they need a break because, man, no, they're young. They don't need a break. They should be playing 35 minutes a night. There shouldn't be like an energy. But in terms of like the mental, I guess it's good for them going forward. But going into that with the break, we have All-Star Weekend where Jabari Smith was in the Rising Stars game. I did not watch any All-Star. Yeah, he was on the team. Yeah, was he? Yeah. Lost to some G Leaguers, I heard. Wimby with his super team ended up losing to some G Leaguers as well. So guys, let's talk about the All-Star break overall. Also, shout out Sabrina for facing Curry, shooting from the NBA three-point line. Curry did win, but he is the greatest shooter of all time. I mean, it was a close game.
It was the Sabrina Steph thing was awesome. Like that was the best part of All-Star Weekend, hands down, because All-Star Weekend is like this. It's bland. It's boring. The NBA has tried to spice it up in the past. Getting rid of East versus West and having like the team captains and all that. That was kind of cool for a couple of years. And then they tried to do like the draft live and that was kind of fun. I'm all for innovation and trying to make things fun and exciting. And look at the IST, right? There were a ton of haters when they first introduced the IST, talking about doing the in-season tournament. And then they did it and it was awesome. The IST was great. Like, especially once we got to the actual tournament play, it was incredible. We actually saw some playoff atmosphere basketball in November, early December, whatever it was. So that was really cool. The Steph Sabrina thing was awesome. The rest of All-Star Weekend was just kind of a big and I watched all of it, and I watch all of it every year. And I just, at this point, you could hear it in Adam Silver's voice when he was giving the trophy to the Eastern Conference, when he was just he let out that, it was such a dejected, just downtrodden, he was so tired of it because he hyped it up literally the day before on Saturday. He was like, I think we're going to get a better game than last year's All-Star game. The issue is it's got to be one of two things. Either if the NBA is going to continue to hype up the All-Star Weekend and the All-Star Game is this awesome tentpole marquee event that everybody needs to tune in for and that's supposed to be exciting and fun, that's cool. You can do that. But you got to get the players to buy in, because right now the players treat it like a joke. So then it compounds itself, because then the players treat it like a joke. So then the NBA looks like a joke because they've been hyping it up the whole time. Either you just got to go into it and be laissez-faire and just be like, you know what? It's fine. It is what it is. We don't care. We're not going to take it seriously because they won't take it seriously. Let's just goof off and have fun. That's fine. You can go into it with that mentality. The issue is you got two differing mentalities here going at one another, and that's the problem.
Yeah, and I don't think you have the killers in the NBA like you did back when Kobe and AI and all those guys were in the All-Star game, even MJ. It was killer mentality. I don't care if this is a rec game, hey, we're going at it. We're going at it. I'm going to prove that I'm superior to you, and I'm going to show you what I am. And I think that's what we don't have in the NBA is we don't have the killers. It's a lot of wannabes, but not a lot of killers in the NBA that, regardless of the situation, are going to go balls to the wall and, play every game, every moment like it's the last. I think it was a comment. I forgot who said it. They play harder in the summer rec games in LA than they do in the All-Star games. So something has to change. I know it was, I think Ant Edwards put out there, it was incentive based. If you made it incentive based, or it was an article out this morning that if NBA players are lobbying to get paid, maybe if you put a price tag behind it, the winning team, kind of like the in-season tournament, they put a price tag behind it, and players start playing harder. maybe they should do that for the All-Star game too. Make that incentive, put a price tag behind it, and maybe that'll turn it around.
I mean,
It's not a bad
again,
idea.
you have guys like Kobe, Jordan. They took the All-Star game serious because they always thought they were the best players on the court. I haven't watched a lick of All-Star weekend this week. So it looked like a little practice scrimmage out there. Just everybody's running up and down the floor doing whatever they want. Like back in the day, it was Jordan, like the Jordan Iversons, Marburys. Yes, the score will still be higher, but again, you saw some competitiveness
Yeah.
in the fourth quarter. You saw people to going one-on-one, but they were serious when they were doing it. You saw a lot of like Dwayne Wade, like Kobe had a busted nose in the All-Star game. Like I just don't watch. All-Star weekend ain't just fun anymore. Like I do agree with Jackson. I loved it at Sabrina and Curry battle. Loved that battle, but everything else, it's just no fun. It's just no fun. I think you really got to put some stakes on this All-Star game, put some meaning on it, so to get these players to buy in.
Well, what's crazy is I was just watching the highlights of 20 years ago. Makes me feel old. 20 years ago, Yao Ming and Steve Francis in the 2004 All-Star game. They were just showing highlights of those two, and it was competitive. I mean, you had KG going at it, jumping off the bench. Not Marbury, Iverson and Kobe, and I mean this was 8 Kobe. This wasn't 24 Kobe. This was 8 Kobe. Shaq, was still in it. D Wade, like it was a crazy time. And it was a good game. It was a 3-point game. It ended up being a 3-point game. I think it was like 139 to 136, the end score or something like that. And it was competitive. They were going back and forth, shot for shot. And even down when it came down in the crunch time, it was like 2-point game, 1-point game. Who was going to get the ball? They even threw it at Yao in the post, and he's shooting fadeaways to take the lead. And I'm like, oh, that is what you want in the All-Star game, like the back and forth, the competitiveness, and just the intensity. You want to see the intensity there because that's what makes good basketball to watch.
What's crazy is you don't even have to go back that far to find good basketball in the All-Star game, because you can go back to 2020. Now, the issue with 2020 is it was really emotionally charged. Kobe's passing, anointing the All-Star game MVP award in his honor. But then they also had the Elam ending at the end, right, where they played to the target score the way that they do still in the Rising Stars game. And you had all those different factors, but I don't know why they got rid of the Elam ending. I thought that was a lot of fun. I thought doing the donations to charity for each quarter was kind of cool. But maybe the right answer is at the end of the day, look, they are monetarily incentivized in the in-season tournament. Do it again for All-Star weekend. You'll actually get players who are incentivized to play better if they have a chance to win some cold hard cash. So that might be as simple as it is to fix it. Hopefully the NBA's got billions of dollars to throw around, so hopefully they can figure out a proper answer. But Preston, I apologize. I know you didn't anticipate us spending this much time on All-Star weekend.
That's fine.
We had to get these bars off, man. These are frustrations. All right.
Yes.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
As long as we didn't have to talk about the dunk contest, I'm okay.
Okay, if a G Leaguer wins another dunk contest, I'm gonna have a problem. I'm going to tangent. Why do we have G Leaguers first off in the Rising Stars game? I understand if they're on the team, right, and they're on a 2-way contract, and they're in the Rising Stars. Okay, I get that. But they have like actual G Leaguers popping up again. Mac McClung plays for the Magic, so Mac McClung can't even make the Magic roster, and they're the Magic. And he out here winning dunk contests. To me, that is absolutely absurd. You had Jaylen Brown do some crazy ass shit. Excuse my language, but that was you see. Now you brought up dunk contest, AD, and now I can't stop talking about it. It was atrocious, man. And it can still be fun. They can still make it fun, man. It's just they're so lazy about it. I mean, one year we had a dude wearing Tim's for his dunk contest. That was incredible.
Cole Anthony.
Yeah, Cole Anthony. Well, that was again something about the Magic over there. I don't know what they smoking on. That's what I need to be able to. Anyway, the All-Star break was interesting. 211 points in an All-Star game. That's crazy. I don't think I've put up 211 points in a 2K in my career game. So to put that in perspective, really interesting. We played really hard-nosed defense in the All-Star game. It looked like Jokic and Luka are really potentially maybe budding stars together. They were passing the ball a lot together, playing a lot. Jokic was looking at him like I look at certain people out in the bar is really interesting.
Hey,
I don't know.
I need Adam Silver to go back and become David Stern, and if that trade is proposed, veto.
There's no way, even if Luka ever got to a point of demanding a trade, that Mark Cuban would happily give him to the Nuggets at this point. And it's funny because I'm sure y'all have maybe seen this, but Drewski had that recent video where he talked about your work relationship or whatever, your work life. And so somebody shared the clip where it's like, this is gonna be Jokic going home to Jamal Murray after playing with Luka, and it was the end of the video where Drewski's getting in the car with his actual wife, and he's all mad and moody and upset. And it's like, that's exactly how it was. Is Jokic and Luka, they share a lot of cultural similarities, right? Slovenia, Serbia, like, you know, I'm sure that they probably talk outside the game, that kind of thing. So it is what it is. But it was funny. It was funny to see their little bromance going on.
Yeah. See, the thing is, though, is I'm not trying to see none of that pairing. Because first off, we already got to deal with Wemby, right? As it is, I'm not trying to deal with a pairing of Jokic and Luka. First off, I don't even know who's stopping that in the league ever. Second, Houston, like, our best player is Şengün, who's fantastic, and has very high potential. We've got Jabari Smith. We got a lot of guys on our team, but probably not Luka Jokic X combo worthy. I'm not trying to deal with none of that.
Whoa, so like you said, you're a hater if you don't think that any of these 6 guys can become as good as.
Here, let me tell you. You know, Jackson, you do catch a lot of flack for talking about Jalen Green and some of our other players, you know, but at the end of the day, we're Houston fans, and if we have a player that we like that's on our team, we're a fan of them, right? You know, like I'm an Anthony Edwards fan, right? If I have Ant on our team, yeah, I'm gonna love Ant. But like when we face it against Ant, you know, I'm not a fan of him at that moment in time. This is Houston. I'm a fan of Houston Rockets, right? I'm not a blank fan. I'm not a where he at fan. I'm not team fan. But anyway, let's jump back into it. So let's talk about the post All-Star break expectations going forward for the team. So we're gonna start with player expectations, and then next we'll jump into the team organization expectations. So kind of like I led into it, like we talked about earlier, efficiency, free throws, threes, players. Now, an interesting thing was said a few episodes ago on Locked On Rockets with Jackson. He said something about potentially making a change in the lineup according to Ime Udoka, right? If someone's got to go, they had some, potential people that were getting out. Now, we haven't had a chance to talk about that here on the podcast. So before we actually talk about specific player expectations, let's talk about roster changes. All right. So before we end up in the season, do we think that there is going to be a starting lineup change? Now, it's one thing to talk about it, and you may say potentially, maybe. There's a lot of potentially maybes, but I'm leaning towards someone actually might be out of the starting lineup.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's my 2 cents is if Ime rolls back into the first game post All-Star break, which is what, against is it Suns or is it somebody else?
It's the Pels.
Pels, there we go. If he rolls into the Pels game with a starting lineup change, then cool, he did it, right? And credit to Ime, because it's been a long time coming is the problem. Like, I think you could have justified a starting lineup change back in like December. But credit to Ime on 2 fronts. One, for sticking with Jalen for as long as he did, because and I shared these thoughts over at LOR, but it bears repeating, is if you bench a young player, right? Especially if you bench him and then immediately like your replacement for him is another young player who's arguably better than him and younger than him, that is a mind-shattering level of like confidence that is just gone. Like, whatever little sliver of confidence that Jalen had left at that point would just be crushed into itty-bitty pieces if you do that to him. So the Rockets and Ime have given Jalen more than enough runway, more than enough time to show himself, to show what he can do, to showcase himself, to prove that he deserves that starting spot. So credit to Ime and the coaching staff for that, for being patient with him. But if he does come back, Pels game, new starting lineup, and it's Jalen for somebody else, or maybe it's multiple changes. I'm not saying it's only Jalen. I think you could make an argument that maybe Jabari could be benched for his recent play as of late. And hell, you could maybe even make an argument that because of the slow starts and the lack of energy, which is very much not just a Jalen thing or just a Jabari thing, Şengün has been a culprit of that as well. So even though he's the team's best player, maybe you need to send him a message that, hey, starting games slowly or not coming out with the right energy is unacceptable, and you're not going to have your starting spot until I see you playing hard every second that you're out on the floor. So Ime could make any number of changes to the lineup. I think the obvious one is probably Jalen Green. If it doesn't happen in that game against the Pels, it's not happening the rest of the season. If he doesn't come back out after the All-Star break and make a lineup change, I don't see a world where he goes like 5 games into post All-Star break with the exact same starting lineup, Fred, Jalen, Dylan, Jabari, and Şengün, and then decides 5 games after that to be like, all right, you know what? I should have changed it 5 games ago. Let's go ahead and swap it up. So that's kind of where my head, where I'm thinking it's headed.
Well, you should have. Well, you thinking the way Jalen Green played all season long. I forgot how many fourth quarters he had to sit out. That's too many times you have to sit out during the fourth quarter, watching your team out there either coming back and winning the game or losing the game. That's too many fourth quarters you have to sit out. So again, if he comes out of that Pelicans game with Jalen Green as a starter, then you won't see no switch out of the lineup. But the obvious is Jalen Green, and the obvious also to me, you probably will put Thompson the way he has played in the starting lineup. If it was a switch, you probably will see Thompson as that starting guard in that lineup alongside of Fred VanVleet in that 2-guard lineup. But again, Jalen Green is just. I expected him to be more efficient this year. He has not been more efficient this year. He has been absolutely not so great this year, and it's just been a disappointing season for Jalen Green overall. It's bad enough that when Steven Silas was the head coach, you're dropping 30 points, you're dropping 22 points on a losing team, but we have more of a chance this year, and you're just downgrade all of a sudden with a team that has actually expectations. The moment Ime Udoka walks in that door, that is expectations on a team. Now you can't perform at a high rate, especially against the Memphis Grizzlies, where you don't play pretty much a second half. We don't play in the second half. That is just really unacceptable. So we'll see if we're going to get a change in New Orleans, and if we do, I expect that lineup to stay right there consistently. Jalen Green to come off the bench, but if we don't, just like Jack said, we won't see a starting lineup change. We won't see one at all.
This is my thing on Jalen Green. Jalen Green's Achilles heel is structure, and that is going to be a battle for him to overcome to get to where he thinks, and most of the Rockets Twitterverse or Xverse thinks he is. That's the issue. I agree that benching him may shatter his confidence, may bring him down, but old folks used to say, sometimes, young man, you got to get humbled. and that may be a wake-up call for Jalen. He may need to be humbled a little bit. He was on this, off-season tour on these podcasts and, having PG and all these guys bringing up his name and saying Jalen's the next guy, KG and Paul, and, Gilbert Arenas, all these guys bringing up Jalen Green's name. He's the next one up. He got humbled, and like you said, Dante, in these fourth quarters, getting benched, hopefully that's a telltale sign of things to come. Sometimes you got to get kicked in the ass to get your act together, and that may be the solution. I know Dante said, amen. I'm a big proponent of Cam. Oh, Cam.
I love Cam. I love Cam.
I want to see more of Cam Whitmore with the starters. I want to see Cam more with the starters just to see how he plays and goes and flows with the starters. I just want to see, even if it's for a game or two, I want to see Cam plugged in there and how he operates.
To kind of quote an old veteran, not direct quote, but to quote him, sounds like John Wall might be right. A lot of like how they were handed that, talking about KPG and Jalen Green, how they were handed certain things. It was just gifted to them. They were given this opportunity, and then everybody else had to work for it. And John Wall was talking kind of like, that's not how it is in the league. When you get up there with the big boys, you got to earn your keep. You got to make sure that, you put in, you work for the time that you think you deserve. And although Jalen has worked, right, we've seen that. His numbers have regressed. Now, his defensive intensity we've seen improvement, right? We've seen improvement with the playmaking. His pocket passes a little bit better. He's able to make certain passes that he couldn't make last year. He has improved in certain areas, but he's a scorer, right? That's what we drafted him as. That's what we envisioned him as. That's been his whole thing, is that he was a scorer, and he hasn't been doing that. So if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, you get moved, right? The fact that he's been in the starting lineup for so long, again, and this is coming from a Jalen Green fan, so this does hurt me. The fact that he's been in the starting lineup for so long, it's time for a change, right? Sometimes, like you guys are saying, we just need to change, And me personally, I wouldn't mind sliding Dylan Brooks to the 2 and throwing Tari Eason in there at the 3. That would be my starting lineup change.
And the problem when you start looking at the alternatives that the Rockets have to potentially start in place of Jalen is you start to run into a problem of let's use Tari as the example. You're suddenly very limited from a playmaking perspective at that point, because all of you really, if you were to inject Tari into the starting lineup, move Dylan down to the 2, suddenly you've got Dylan, Tari, and Jabari, and you don't really want any of those guys initiating or running offense. So that leaves you with just
you don't want
running
point guard Dylan Brooks.
I really don't. I think I'm all good. That's something that I could live the rest of my life on this earth without ever having to see. And unfortunately, we've already seen it for small stretches where we get Memphis Dylan Brooks, who tries to take over a game. And the thing is, he's a hooper, so sometimes he'll make a bunch of buckets, and you're like, holy crap, like Dylan Brooks is the GOAT. But then other times you're like, man, he goes 5 of 17. This looks awful. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. Dylan, Tari, and Jabari are all very serviceable 3-and-D type players who can excel in their roles, but it really means if you go that route, then you're going to have to really lean into running the offense through Alper and Şengün, running a steady diet of Fred VanVleet, Alper and Şengün pick and roll, and that's going to be your entire offense. You're not going to have much else outside of that. And the good part is we saw from the early going this season that actually is a really effective offensive system, and the Rockets looked pretty solid, and their defensive numbers were great when they did that earlier. And then they kind of shifted a little bit and started getting, started involving Jalen a little bit more offensively, trying to get him some on-ball reps, because they've tried so many different ways to make it work this year with Jalen, and it just hasn't clicked yet, except for this little kind of Linsanity run that Jalen was on as of late. That's looked pretty good. But I don't know, and it's looked sustainable because it's looked like there's actual things that he's changed that he can stick with, that can become permanent parts of his game. But is that player still the proper complement to the other 4 starters, or is that player that Jalen has been, which is a great slashing threat, someone who can finish at the rim, getting out in transition, scoring at the free throw line? That's all great. He's still not shooting the ball well. In the month of February, he's shooting a little over 15% from 3. It's just not good. It's not sustainable. So you can't do that. So I think Tari makes a lot of sense because he's the guy that impacts winning at a high level, all that stuff. Cam would be a ton of fun too. I'd love to see Cam injected into the starting lineup because he's a bona fide scorer. Cam has never seen a shot that he didn't like, and he's arguably the best catch and shoot threat on the entire Rockets roster, but you still have that same issue where you have a distinct lack of playmaking and ball handling ability if you throw Cam into the starting lineup, which is why I think Amin is like the one guy that makes a ton of sense. You're seeing how he complements the other guys that he plays with. Even though him and Alper and Şengün are both non-shooters, they have found a very quick chemistry with one another where they're both such great passers and they have such great court vision that it doesn't matter that that neither of them can shoot the ball, because they're going to find each other, right? Amin is going to draw a double team and find Şengün, or Şengün's going to draw a double or a triple team and find a cutting Amin on the baseline or in the dunker spot. And credit to the coaching staff for getting creative in how they're actually deploying Amin Thompson when whether he's on ball or off ball, he's finding ways to be impactful. So I think he is the clear favorite to be thrown into the starting lineup. I think he's earned it. There's an argument that he's probably already the best defender on the Rockets already as a rookie, which is kind of insane to think about when Dylan Brooks was your marquee free agent acquisition as supposed to be your defensive ace. The fact that Amin Thompson might already be a better defender than he is kind of crazy. So yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at. I think it's got to be Amin if they're going to make a change.
And I agree with you because our shooting guard isn't shooting anyway, so we might as well insert a non-shooter in the lineup. So it doesn't really affect necessarily the play style. It's not like he's going to be catch and shoot and all that, because like when we are catch and shoot, we're going for 2 of 10 or 1 of 7. And let me tell you again, as a Jalen fan and as a Houston fan, it's really heartbreaking because I want to get on the app and I want to defend Jalen, on X and whatnot. And I was talking to Rockets Culture on X, and he's posting his Jalen bait, whatever, and him and I are going back and forth. And then bro said, "You really have to defend Jalen Green." I was like, "Damn."
Well, look,
You're right.
it's some of the plays, and look, at the end of the day, I'd love for Jalen to turn it around. It would make my life a lot easier. I'd enjoy watching the Rockets play a lot more if he suddenly turned it on and it all clicked suddenly. The last, few weeks where he's actually been kind of on a scoring tear and it looks like he's kind of turned it around and turned a corner. That's been awesome to see. It's been really encouraging watching him finish at such an elite level in and around the basket. So even aside the 3-point shooting issues, besides that, it's been promising to see that level of play, but then the numbers also don't lie, right? Jalen Green's on-off ratings, excluding garbage time, he's a minus 1.8 when he's on the court, and he's plus 7.3 when he's off the court. The Rockets are 7.5 points better when Jalen Green is not on the basketball floor. That is a pretty damning statistic. And to something that you said, Preston, about the play style not changing as much. I know you kind of meant it jokingly because, Amin doesn't shoot and Jalen's struggling to shoot. But I do think actually if you did put Amin Thompson in the starting lineup, the play style would shift a little bit because Amin can, even though he's been used off ball and we've seen that work, you can use him off ball or you could put him on ball and then throw Fred VanVleet off ball. And then, at least theoretically, you've actually got 3 really good shooters around your 2 non-shooters, right? Because Fred's a good shooter, at least historically, and theoretically, he's a good shooter. He's had some, up and down games this year, but at least he fits that mold. Defenses are going to treat him as a shooting threat for sure. Same thing for Dylan, same thing for Jabari. So you've got 3 bona fide shooters around Amin Thompson and Alperen Şengün, and then you can let them work on their chemistry together, let them work on their growth and how that looks, because at this point, Şengün looks like a borderline all-star, and there's a very strong argument that he could have been an all-star this year.
Yep.
If he continues that trajectory, then you've got to figure out how that works with Amin Thompson. I still think that one of them has to develop a shot at some point in their respective careers, but the fact that those 2 are able to make it work right now and neither of them can shoot a lick is perfect.
Yeah. And we saw against the Grizzlies game, they had fantastic chemistry, and they had some nice passes to each other in dunker spot there. There was that touch pass where Amin threw it behind him, and Şengün dunked that shit, and I was like jumping up out of my seat. I was like, damn, that's crazy, It is really nice to see. And then not to mention, we're going to have 3 really high IQ basketball players on the court at the same time. Again, not that Jalen isn't a high IQ basketball player, but, Amin is a point guard, just generally comes with that. Although rookie, still point guard, right? He's going to have that understanding of the game that Jalen clearly does not have yet. And that's okay. But going forward with Jalen, expectations, hopefully he can be consistent. Like, that's literally the one thing, AD says something about his Achilles heel being structure, and damn, he's right. He just can't, he kind of thrives in that, like, do your thing ball, man. Unfortunately, and so hopefully going forward, we'll see something different, but I do expect a change in the lineup. So, hopefully Jalen can get some stuff together.
Can I ask you guys a question? Can I pose a question for the group?
Mm-hmm.
If Jalen is moved to the bench, how do we think he responds? Do we think he excels in that role? Do we think he suddenly looks like he's like because it feels kind of like, I don't know, square peg round hole for a little while with him in the starting lineup? Do we think it's a seamless fit and suddenly all the pressure is gone and he's able to just go out there and hoop the way that he knows he can and be in that 6-man role? Or do we think that it ends catastrophically where he's like frustrated and upset and not happy in the role? Like, how do you guys think this plays out if Jalen is moved to the bench to start the second half of the season?
Let me start. So going forward with that, we saw with the trade rumors that Jalen Green was even posting on his Instagram story about the trade rumors. There was the Mikal trade with the 3 first-round picks and Jalen for Mikal Bridges, and he posted on Instagram and took it down with a matter of minutes. He said something about, all right, I see how it is, something to that effect, right? Jalen sees all of it, right? And him being such a young kid, I think he's just too clinically online. I think he reads a lot of what goes on online, and he lets that get to him. And although he does have confidence when he's got people behind him, but he doesn't bring that same kind of like energy like Ja Morant, stay on that side. He don't bring that. Like, he see the hate and he's like, dang, maybe it is true. And he get in his own head, and then he slumps for a week, 2, 3, 4 weeks, or in this case, all season. I'm not a fan of the snowball effect that we're getting with him, and unfortunately he just doesn't respond well enough to criticism. He's not responding well, like Jared Allen said, the lights are too bright. Sometimes it's just That's just how it is, and that's okay if it is like that. But we have to recognize that's what it is, and then move accordingly going forward. So I think if we do move him to the bench, I think he's going to quit on the team. I'll be 100%. He'll still play, but I just don't see the energy there. I mean, we saw it with the Steven Silas era when Silas asked Jalen to play defense, and he's like laughing at him. You know what I mean? It's just something about respect and then his own confidence. I just don't see, you know what I mean? I just don't see him being productive off the bench. Not that he can't be productive off the bench, but by choice, be productive off the bench. You can go ahead next, Dalton, or AD.
You can go ahead, AD.
Yeah, so for me, I think he's going to flourish in spite of him being pissed off, in spite of him being upset, not happy with the situation and the role. He's going to flourish as a prove you wrong, type of situation. I think that he has something to prove, and I think that's something that when he came into the league, that was the chip on his shoulders, that he believed he was the best. He was the number 1 overall pick. Then Cade got selected. That was his chip going in. I'm going to prove that I should have been the number 1 overall pick. Maybe this chip on his shoulder coming off the bench allows him to flourish and prove, hey, I am that guy that was taken number 2 overall. I am this scorer, bona fide scorer. I can get any shot on the floor. Let me show you what I can really do. So hopefully, I'm expecting him, if this change does happen, to flourish in spite of his, disgruntlement and being upset with the situation.
That would be best case scenario. I'd be all for that.
I think as for Jalen, I'm not gonna say he's gonna be. I think far as a number 2 overall pick and what your expectations should be, I will sense a little anger that coming off the bench, that he will come in. He's not gonna take it lightly, but I think it will be probably best for what the squad is. I think he would do very well with that second unit coming off the bench. I think he would do a really good job. So again, I think it's gonna be some frustration that he got moved to the bench. But again, Ime Udoka, like I said, I applaud Ime Udoka several times from keeping him in the lineup and being as patient as he done with him all year. I mean, he's been struggling really throughout the half of the year, since pretty much like Jackson said, through December, you could have made an argument that he should have been pulled out the starting lineup, but Ime Udoka stuck to that. And again, I mean, it's so long. It's almost, you can't keep waiting too long for him to break out. He's got to break out soon. I think coming off the bench may be the best for the team.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're Houston fans. We're not player fans, right? And we got to do what's best for the team, even if it means my guy has to come off the bench. I think the offseason is where we're going to see potentially a Jalen trade. If he gets moved to the bench, he's traded. I'm very, very confident saying that, simply just because he told Roosh, he ain't no damn 6-man, right? And if he believes that and he gets moved to the bench, I think, just because he's a kid, I hate using that as an excuse. He's 22 now, right? He's a year younger. Jesus, he's a year younger than me. He's a year younger than me, and he should be grown, in that respect, right? I put it like this at my job. If I'm not performing at my job and they demote me, one, I realize I'm not doing my job right. That sends a message to me, and I need to either A, bust my ass, or B, find a new job. Those are my options going forward, right? If I can't, then I'm gonna be stuck in this role that I'm not happy with. My work ethic goes down, and I probably get fired anyway. So either, you know what I mean? That's just how I'm looking at it. So Jalen's got a couple things he needs to do, a couple things he needs to fix. For the record, I don't think he's a bust, guys. Stop commenting that. I don't think he's a bust.
It's another comment I want to address.
But he's not meeting expectations. Right? He's in year 3. But I've been bringing this up quite a lot. I kind of want your guys' thoughts about it. It took some players quite a while to be able to become an all-star or reach that talent. Like I say Steve Nash. He's the guy I always talk about. It took him 6 years before he was an all-star. He was playing next to Dirk Nowitzki, an all-time great, potentially the greatest power forward of all time. And he was not doing too well. He started most games, played well, or played okay enough to start. was not anything. Wasn't in conversations, and then he got put in most improved player conversations, and he was an all-star and eventually an MVP. So maybe a shift in scenery for him will be good, because I want him to excel. It's not like, and maybe some people, maybe they just not a fan of Jalen. That's okay. I get it. He hasn't been good for the team. So if that's how you feel, I understand that, but don't be comparing like Dacian Nix. You know what I mean?
No. We us at the H-Town Rundown, the spies, Dacian.
You know what? I don't want to talk about Dacian Nix. I just don't understand it. I don't know what's going on, and it's a lot of Dacian Nix.
If you say Dacian Nix, I'm Pavlovian conditioned to press that button on my soundboard. It has to happen every time.
Oh man.
For me, you saying a trade in the offseason will likely be, especially if the change in the rotation happens. It has to be the right trade. You can't just it can't be, because he's unhappy, let's move him, for pennies on a dollar. No, it has, and even I wasn't even a fan of the Mikal Bridges trade, the 3 firsts and Jalen. That to me that was
disrespectful.
Yeah, that was just a a bullshit trade idea. But if you're going to trade Jalen, it has to be the perfect trade. It has to be worth it. It has to be the perfect partner.
Well, here's the thing. I think the perfect time to potentially trade Jalen has actually passed, because if you move him to the bench, you are signaling to the other 29 teams in the association that he's no longer a starter, that he is a bench player, and that you're putting him in now. Maybe he moves to the bench and he excels in that role. Cool. And then maybe you're able to, revisit the discussion in the offseason. He's rehabilitated some of his value. So that's a distinct possibility. But the other route that this organization could go, right, is if he does excel in that role and he looks really good, then rather than just, okay, cool, he's selling, let's sell high on him, let's trade him while we can. It could just very well be, hey, he's in the role, and if he's happy, if he realizes that he's best served in that role, and if that's the best version of basketball that he can play is coming off the bench and just being that sixth man spark plug, and the Rockets start winning games and it looks really good, then maybe his mentality shifts, right? Maybe then he's like, you know what? Being a 6-man isn't so bad, right? There were some really damn good 6 men in NBA history, right? And you can be one of those guys. You could be a winning player as a 6th man. And that's not a knock on you. That's not a knock on your resume or how talented you are. I mean, hell, Manu Ginobili came off the bench for years and the Spurs won 5 titles, right? Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, it's about what's best for the team. And if you can directly overlap what's best for Jalen and what's best for the team and get those two ideologies to coexist with one another, fantastic approach. And again, it's all TBD on what the Rockets ultimately do. But man, I am waiting for 30 minutes before tip-off of that Pelicans game, because 30 minutes before tip-off is when they announce who the starting lineup is going to be. And my God, if it's not Jalen in that starting lineup, Rockets Twitter is about to go up in flames.
Oh my goodness. I'm not... Yeah, man, every day on X every day on X, anytime Jalen plays or any Jalen news, it's pretty bad. But that's enough about Jalen. All we do is talk about Jalen. I should get his name tattooed on my tongue for how often I talk about it. Let's talk about Jabari Smith. This month of February, he has not been shooting well, but he's been at least fairly consistent in defense. So going forward with him is hopefully he can build that consistency, right? Building that consistency on offense, and then continuing to be a better rebounder, because we see he's almost averaging a double-double, which is really nice. We got 2 people almost averaging a double-double on our team between in rebounds between Şengün and Jabari Smith Jr., which is fantastic. Unfortunately, our backup big, Jock Landale, didn't work out, unfortunately. So we got about Jabari kind of being that backup role. And then, of course, Uncle Jeff in that same role. But hopefully Jabari can kind of work on that rebounding those box outs going forward.
Well, where with Jabari is I'm not even fully convinced that he's playing at 100% right now, because pre-injury Jabari was averaging about 9 boards a game. And he's just under 7 a game, I believe, now, since coming back from injury across, I don't know, what is this, like 8 games, 10 games? I don't know, something like that. And so that's been a bit concerning, right? That's been an area. So he's not only he's regressed shooting the ball a little bit, he's shooting around 27.5% in the month of February. His rebounding numbers have taken a hit since coming back from injury. The defense, thankfully, is still there. He's had, I won't say he was as good pre-injury. So all of this leads me to believe that I think he's playing probably through some discomfort, through some pain or whatever. Because at this point in the NBA season, and I've heard this from executives, from coaches, whatever, is everybody's banged up over the course of an 82 game season. Like, you're going to have little nagging injuries and bruises, and you're not going to be 100%. Like, you don't wake up feeling like, oh, I'm great, good to go today. Like, you got all sorts of ailments throughout the season. So maybe Jabari's ankle is still kind of bothering him, whatever. But I would like to see him really focus and get back to the level of rebounding that he had pre-injury, because especially with the regression that we've seen from Alper and Şengün, whose rebounding has also been a little suspect as of late, and just kind of his general effort on the glass has been kind of bad. You need a 4 next to Alp who can make a difference on the glass. The Rockets as a team are just undersized across the board. Fred's an undersized point guard. Jalen's an undersized 2. Dylan's the only one you can maybe make an argument that he's like 6'7". He's strong. He's a good sized wing, but I still think in comparison to some of the other wings on the NBA landscape, he is a bit undersized. Jabari is the only guy who's oversized for his position. So I'd like to see him be, a bit more of a beast on the glass for this back half of the season.
Yeah. For me, I agree. Aggression is what's missing from Jabari Smith. If you look at, I go back to the summer league. He was uber aggressive, uber calling for the ball, on offensive end and on the defensive end. He was very, very aggressive. And that's something that I feel like he's missing, because he started off the season aggressive as well. He carried it over. It may be the injury that's stopping some of the aggression. He's, trying to play through it. But if Jabari ever is with that aggression consistently, like there's the sky's the limit for Jabari.
Look, I said it earlier this season, but to me, when we've seen the stretches, and we even saw it for a little while where Ime elected to start pulling Jabari out of the games early and coming back to him with the second unit, and then kind of running some of the offense through him in that second unit. Jabari is a guy that I don't think he's never going to be like a primary initiator. Like, he's not going to be the guy you want walking the ball up the court and, telling guys where to go and initiating offense. But he's definitely a guy I think that you can play through, because his skill set, right? You put him at the elbow, at the high post, whatever, and he'll go to work, right? Just get his back to the basket and get to his turnaround fadeaway, or just face up a guy and get in triple threat in either. And he's been a sneaky good driver this year, right? When he puts the ball on the floor, he takes 1-2 strong dribbles. He's right there at the rim, uses his length to finish around defenders. So for me, I really would, even though I already said, lock back in on the defense, the rebounding, all that, what was so impressive before the injury. But if I could be in Ime Udoka's ear and ask for one thing for the rest of the season, it would be get Jabari the touches offensively, right? Get him in his spots where he can be successful. Let him cook offensively. Let him get 15, 20 shot attempts a game, because he's uber efficient when he does it. Like, and Jabari, to me, he's a rhythm guy in a kind of a similar way that Jalen Green is, where if you don't go to Jabari early, I feel like it's kind of hard for him to pick it up in the second half of a game. But if you get him going early in the first quarter, you get him a couple easy looks from his bread and butter spots on the court, that's when it unlocks the rest of his game, where you start seeing him dribble into these pull-up threes, or not, knocking down catch and shoot opportunities from the perimeter, cutting and finishing inside, going after the offensive glass and getting putbacks. Like, that's when you get Jabari really locked in. Is if you make him feel involved offensively, I think you get the best version of Jabari. So I really would like to see the Rockets kind of maybe shuffle the pecking order a little bit offensively, to where it's, Şengün number 1 option, and then Jabari number 2 right behind him. And Fred is just, teeing these guys up with passes left and right.
Yeah, man. And then kind of going forward with Jabari as well, I want to see more pick and roll from him. I want to see him being that pick and roll guy. And like, as well as his handle, I think has improved over the course of the season, especially what we saw from last year to this year. I don't see why as to not put him in pick and roll with Alp, as long as he's just doing like the overhead pass, that kind of thing. Nothing too crazy. And then being able to get him to that mid range, kind of like how KD was used when he was over on OKC, where he'd run pick and roll with the big man, and then he just do like pull up middies, because that's like anytime that mid range.
We've seen some like big action between Jabari and Şengün before. I don't know if pick and roll is necessarily the best use of their strengths, but even if it's as simple as just, a quick 4 or 5 pick and roll, maybe right there at the free throw line or something, because if you do a pick and roll from the perimeter, then it kind of gets a little bit more sus because then Jabari's got to put the ball on the floor and navigate a pick and roll, and he's got to navigate having a defender on his hip, as well as the big man who's potentially, blitzing him or hedging or showing at the level of the screen. Like that's a whole different set of can of worms that you don't really want to explore, because we kind of saw what it looked like in Summer League when Jabari was bringing the ball up the court and stuff, and that didn't look very great. So for me, I think there is something there between Alpi and Jabari that can be further unlocked, a chemistry between those two. But it's just they got to be a little careful with how they explore it.
I agree. Now we are getting close on time, so we are going to kind of speed round the rest of this. Unfortunately, I don't want to go too quickly through everybody else. But we did kind of touch on Amen, Şengün, the rest of the starting five. But we can talk about Cam and Dylan Brooks going forward with that. So Brooks, I need him to stop thinking he's the GOAT and stop taking post fadeaway shots like he's LeBron, like he's Jordan. Okay, I need him to quit that and take that out immediately. The only way it's okay is if he's got someone 6'3" or shorter on him. I'm not a fan of him like trying to post up bigs or posting up other people about his size. Go down low and try to like play bully ball down low, or try to like do these Euro steps that he's trying. Dylan, I respect you. I love your role when you catch and shoot. I love when you get dunks. I love when you make those cool plays. I need you to cut the rest of that out.
The worst thing that happened was this summer with Dylan Brooks.
Yeah.
That was the worst thing that happened. Not only did it balloon his ego to the point I don't think he'll ever be back to the humbling experience he had in Memphis. I think he's just to a point now where Ime has to check him. Hey,
Ime and Fred.
Yeah, and Ime has to sit him down. Hey, if you're getting out of control, you're trying to do too much, sit down. I mean, I forgot what game it was. He had like 4 fouls in the first quarter. Just doing too much. I'm like, just sit down. just sit down.
Just sit down.
Look, I mean, with Dylan, it's tough because I think you could make a very legitimate argument that he's potentially been the Rockets', I don't know, probably their second best player all season, maybe third best. Like, as far as just flat out consistency, yes, he fouls a lot. He's got those issues that he's got to work on. The bad fouls have been problematic. But I think you can also look at his numbers on the season. His field goal numbers on the season directly coincide with Fred being out. He's shooting just under 16 attempts per game in the handful of the 5 games that Fred has missed. So to your point, AD, about checking about Ime and Fred checking Dylan, I do think, right, Ime's not out there, encouraging Dylan to take those shots. I'm sure Ime hates those shots too. It's different though. The coach can only do so much yelling from the sideline. You need a guy on the floor who can control the other 5 guys, who can make sure. And I'm sure that earlier in the season, when we saw like the good version of Dylan Brooks and he was staying in his lane, doing what he was supposed to do, I'm sure the moment he took one of those crappy turnaround fadeaways early in the shot clock, whatever, thinking that he's, Dylan Memphis Brooks, or Dylan, whatever, Memphis Dylan Brooks. You guys know what I'm trying to say. The moment he did one of those, I'm sure Fred was in his ear saying, nah, man, don't be doing that. We don't need that right now. We don't need that from you. So not having Fred out there has a lot of adverse side effects that are really hard to quantify. And Dylan Brooks thinking he's him all of a sudden is one of those. So yeah, I think he goes back to normal. And yeah, so I'm really not worried about Dylan, honestly, long term. I think he's been Dylan is not anywhere near one of like the top 5 or even top 10 of problems with this team right now.
Oh no.
It's just something I like to see him work on.
I know a problem, but I'm not going to say it because I'm gonna get some hate.
Yeah.
Jay Sean Tate is, but let's move. I don't want to get started with Tate.
And then Tari Eason. I just need you to get healthy because I think he's been really well all season. Even like the minimal ball handling I've seen, he's been aggressive on rebounds. He's scoring. He's actually making layups, which was the biggest thing last year. Was he wasn't making layups as a rookie, and he's making layups. He's making dunks. He's making aggressive plays, getting putbacks, shooting the 3. He's a nice little spot up shooter, actually, from what I've seen. Eye test. I'm not looking at numbers, but from eye test, that's what I've seen. He's been aggressive too. That's the biggest thing. I want him to get healthy, play the season because sounds like
this Rockets team is a much better team when he's out on the floor. And I said this at the beginning of the season, and it stays true to right now. Is this team was not a team built to withstand injuries. They just weren't. They don't have other guy. Nobody on this roster can do what Fred does. Nobody on this roster can do what Şengün does. Nobody on this roster can do what Dylan does. So the moment you miss any one of those guys, which now we've, thankfully they've only missed Şengün for like 2 games all season, but Fred's missed some extended time now. Dylan missed his extended time, and Tari, there's nobody on the roster that does what Tari does. Unfortunately, there's guys that do similar things, right? Defend or shoot or whatever, but it's having all those skills in one player with his size, with his energy, with his motor, all of what he brings to the table. Nobody else does what Tari does. So missing him, losing him when you're already an undersized team that kind of struggles to rebound at times against bigger, stronger teams, it really hurts you across the board. So losing Tari, if they had Tari healthy for this entire season, this is a very different Rockets team right now. I think they are very safely in that 7 to 10 play-in range, even despite all the other adversity that this team has faced. If you just fix that one thing, this team is very different.
Right. I mean, you got to look at it. Look how many close games the Rockets have lost due to the lack of effort and energy that Tari brings. Those poke checks that he have, those, crazy, causing 5-second inbound, turnovers, the way he affects the game defensively and by effort, that could have been an easily 6-7 games that the Rockets that were toss-up games for the Rockets or close losses for the Rockets. It could be wins. So yes, definitely, like you said, Jackson, safely in the play-in with Tari.
Yeah, man, and it would have been nice to have had that. Tari's just so pivotal, man. I just love Tari, and I also love his mom's comments every time after a game is played, man. I love Mama Eason now.
Mama Eason has become a Rockets Twitter staple. It's incredible.
Yes. So going forward now, we're gonna jump into the second part, the quick little last segment here for the organization. We did talk about roster changes quite a lot. We talked about some things that potentially might happen over the offseason, but overall, we did season grades, and I graded Ime as a B+ for what I've seen from him, kind of going, from taking our team for how many wins we had last season to how many we've got this season at 23, and then dealing with all the adversities on top of trying to get us in the plan, as well as ensure our players are being developed correctly. He's had a lot of challenges, and I think he's handled all those pretty well. But there are some things we need him to work on. So I started off the last one. Jackson, why don't you talk about what you want to see more from Ime, and then just overall the coaching staff in general?
Sure. I think that the hand that Ime was dealt with this team was really interesting, because Ime was not shy about pointing out that his goals for this season were to make the play-in, right? That he's never missed the playoffs before in his career. He didn't anticipate starting now, and he wanted to make the playoffs. That was very clear, and that was apparent. Organizationally, I think those goals do align, but at the same time, he didn't just completely throw away the idea of development for the sake of chasing wins at all costs. And that behavior, that choice, has actively cost him a lot of games this season. And that's in and of itself problematic, because it's two diverging philosophies that are going head to head, right? Where you've got, okay, is this season about development? Cool, great. Give Jalen 35+ minutes a night. Doesn't matter if he's playing terribly or playing awesome. You want to see what he can do, and that's fine if you're not trying to make the play-in. But then you have the other side of the coin, where we'd see games where Ime is benching Jalen for poor play or subpar performance, whatever, and it's frustrating because it's like it's really hard to do both at the same time and to do both really well. So I do think we've seen this team struggle in certain games that they very easily could have won if they would have just made decisions earlier on about, okay, cool, like Jalen's struggling. He just doesn't have it. Let's swap it, right? We talked about this earlier. They could have made a lineup change all the way back in December that probably would have largely benefited this team, and they'd probably be 4 or 5 wins better right now if they had made a lineup shift sooner rather than waiting until post All-Star break. So, and by now it might not even matter. They might not be in the play-in tournament discussion at all, because they're sitting a couple of spots out of the 10th seed as is. So I think for Ime, I love the job that he's done with the cards that he's been dealt. I'm very curious to see what the direction is post All-Star break, because it's going to go one of two ways. It's either the Rockets are going to realize, hey, we're not in the play-in tournament discussion. We can't make it. And we're just going to focus on youth and development, right? We're going to get as many reps for the young guys as possible. Hell, we might even see Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks shut down for extended periods to end the season so that Cam and Amin can get the proper minutes that they deserve. That's one path. The other path is we see Ime go all the way in on trying to make the play-in tournament. We see him make a starting lineup adjustment. We see very little to no minutes for any players who are struggling, regardless of age or status or draft slot selection, whatever. Like, if Jalen doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. He's getting 5 minutes in the first half, and if he misses his first 4 shots, he's not coming back in the second half. That's the other version of Ime Udoka that we might see. So I have no clue where the organization is leaning directionally at this point, whether they want to prioritize the development or whether Ime still really wants to chase for a play-in spot. But we're going to find out very quickly here right after the break what their actual goal is for the rest of the season and whether that goal has kind of shifted internally.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. AD, I think Jackson hit that pretty well, but do you have any thoughts on that as well?
I just don't want the drama from internally coming from the issues between the GM and head coach.
Not sponsored by Coke.
Yeah. But no, I just feel like there's an internal push and pull, tug of war going on that's not open to the public. And you kind of see it reflecting in how Ime is coaching and how he's, trying to navigate and balance the boat and keep it afloat. But I really just want Ime to do what he feels is best.
Balance the boat.
Well, to my knowledge, there isn't any active animosity or anything between Ime and Stone. Like they work well together. Their ideologies actually match up incredibly well because Stone has always been more of a defensive mentality kind of guy. So during the Silas era when defense did not exist for a couple of years, it was problematic, right? They have like Steven and Rafael had very different basketball philosophies, whereas Rafael and Ime are much more aligned in how they think the game should be approached, what they think should happen, all that stuff. And so from that perspective, I don't think there's anything going on like between Rafael and Ime. Is it frustrating that the Rockets couldn't get a deal done at the deadline to slightly improve the roster? Yeah. But is it the end of the world? No. If there wasn't a good deal out there, then there wasn't a good deal out there. And you just got to take them at face value and be like, all right, there just wasn't something there. Now, could the Rockets have been in position to maybe make a couple deals if they had stockpiled a few more assets and been a little bit better at some of their moves on the margins over the last few years? Absolutely. Maybe they could have had 12 second round picks instead of only 5 second round picks to play around with. And then they would have been able to, I say this term and I use this term all the time. I love just envisioning it, right? You load up like a confetti cannon full of second round picks and just blast it at whatever rotation player you want. And then boom, you've got another serviceable rotation guy to help this team out when very clearly they lack shooting. They lack a backup big man. Like these are very clear issues with the roster that have not been addressed, but I don't think that they haven't been addressed just from sheer lack of negligence. I think that the Rockets did their due diligence. They looked out there, they saw what was available, and they're like, you know what, we don't like any of these guys for either whatever they cost or what have you. And it's worth noting that I think at this point right now, Ime Udoka is the most powerful person within the organization, aside from Tillman Fertitta himself, the owner. I think Ime is clearly the most powerful guy in the organization. The Rockets hired him. They're incredibly confident in his ability to get them back to where they want to be. So in a way, Rafael Stone kind of has to work with Ime on whatever vision they collectively share for this team. But I haven't been given any inclination as to the fact that they're not on the same page or in lockstep with one another. I think they're very much on the same page.
Okay.
100%, and kind of go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So this is my only gripe with Rafael Stone. I don't know if this was if this rumor was true or not. But the Jayshawn Tate trade for 2 second round picks that he turned down. That is, to me, if you're talking about stockpiling picks and being able to load your cannon, I feel like that was a misstep.
And look, it very well could be, right? And it was reported, right? Mavs tried to offer 2 seconds. It didn't happen. It could be, they could have turned it down for a variety of reasons. Number one, maybe they don't want to send what they view as a good rotation caliber piece to a division rival, right? That's obstacle number one. Obstacle number two is possibly, internally, they are incredibly high on Jayshawn Tate. They really value him. They've passed on a first round draft pick at last NBA trade deadline for Jayshawn Tate. We also don't know what it would have looked like, what kind of salary they would have gotten back, right? Do they get back some crappy, bad contract that nobody wants, or is it an expiring deal that's just going to fall off the books this summer? I think the biggest thing is, again, they Jayshawn Tate is an attractive piece for a lot of different teams. There's a lot of teams that are very interested in picking up Jayshawn Tate and making them a part of their roster. Unfortunately, his role has become kind of redundant on this Rockets team because you've already got Al P, who's a non-shooter. You've got Amin Thompson, who does a lot of what Jayshawn Tate does, just better at this point. And so it doesn't make sense to play multiple of these non-shooters together. Now, that doesn't diminish what Tate brings to the table. I still think he's easily a top 8 or a top 9 guy on a championship caliber roster. Teams need guys like Jayshawn Tate that can win you some games with their hustle, with their defense, with their physicality, all of that. And he's a bit of an underrated, like, kind of point forward playmaker at times too, when he's got the right pieces around him to facilitate to. So I say all that to say, I would have loved for them to deal Jayshawn Tate for 2 seconds because they're headed for a roster crunch. They just don't have the minutes to. When Cam looks incredible, Tari's coming back from injury. You got Dylan Brooks. You still got Jalen figuring him out. Amin Thompson. You just don't have the minutes for Jayshawn Tate at this point. So if he's just going to sit on the bench anyways, then you might as well recoup some assets for him. But you can also do the same trade this summer. That's the other argument is, if you had a different trade lined up for like a backup big man, like a Daniel Gafford type or whatever that ultimately did go to Dallas, and it was going to cost you 3 seconds, then maybe you flip Jayshawn Tate into 3 seconds or 2 seconds or whatever, and then you package one of your own, and then you go get your Daniel Gafford, and then you feel better about it. But again, the way that, at least my understanding of their mentality is, they didn't feel like they had to make a move. They understand that their goals were to make the play-in this year. They've dealt with a lot of adversity, and they're still ahead of schedule, or at least right on schedule, despite a lot of the adversity that this team has dealt with. So I think that's a good place to be. So if you're a Rockets fan, you should be, even though the deadline was kind of disappointing, I myself was plenty disappointed. I think you got to kind of readjust and look at where this team is at based on expectations coming into the year, and they are right on schedule.
I agree, right on schedule there. The trade deadline, like we talked about briefly, it was definitely disappointing, especially for just Houston fans in general, because like they said, I'm not in the front office, so I don't know what deals weren't, out there. But I do definitely think if our goal was to make the play-in, which it sounded like it was, that was Ime's goal, we should have made a trade at the deadline, right? So them not making a trade at the deadline, it kind of signals that not necessarily that they're punting on the rest of the season, but they're just kind of seeing what they've got going forward. And then I think we're going to make a move in the offseason, which is why, again, Jalen Green is such a hot topic right now. I do think that there is going to be a trade. A lot of people are going to be happy. A lot of people are going to be disappointed going forward with that. But, I'd still say that expectations going forward is that in the offseason, we do make some moves, right? Again, we still got Jayshawn Tate. We still got
this first year, regardless of, play in or not, development, whatever, it's Ime's first year. It's his first year coaching all these guys. It's his first year with the organization. It's his first year really understanding what he has to work with, right? It's you throw a sculptor out there with this, mess of clay, and he's got to make a beautiful vase out of it or whatever. I don't know about pottery. I'm just using a terrible expression here. Point is Ime is still in the early stage where he's like forming the clay, right? It's just, he doesn't know. He didn't know what he had with a lot of these guys. Now he knows. So now they go from whatever the rest of this season is, which again, if I had to take a guess, I think it's probably the developmental route. I think that they're probably a long shot to make the play-in as is. And I think that if they do the internal evaluation and realize, hey, we're not going to make the play-in, it doesn't make sense to push for it. Let's see what we have. Let's see let's get a real good look at all the young guys so we can make some really well-informed decisions this offseason. I think that's probably the best route to go at this point. And then you get the offseason, right, where Ime gets to be a full-blown part of the process. He was a part of the process this past offseason, but he also didn't know what he had to work with, right? Like he knew Fred from a distance. He knew Dylan from a distance. He had an understanding of the young guys on the roster, but he didn't know them. He hadn't coached them for a whole year. He didn't know their personalities, their ins and their outs, them at their best, them at their worst. Like, he understands all that now. And so that's going to be the biggest factor going into this upcoming offseason is Ime is going to have a lot more weight with his decisions because he knows these guys, and he knows, okay, this guy's going to stay. He's a big piece of what I want to do moving forward. Not this guy, not that, whatever. And that's going to be how they navigate the offseason.
Right.
Definitely. Go ahead, AD. You sound like he has.
No.
Are you good? Okay. All right. Okay. So I think that's it, right? We really hit on the expectations for the rest of the season going forward for our players, for the organization, for coaching.
Sorry, I talk a lot. That's my bad, guys.
No, man, we all talk a lot. That's what we love to do.
No, you haven't seen you haven't seen anything until you've seen our Texans podcast. So we have quite a bit of talkers on that side.
Hey, CJ Stroud is a hooper too. Talk about the celebrity all-star game. There we go. Might be the best like cross sport athlete, in Houston. I don't know.
Yeah, hey, the best. At this moment.
Hey, Jalen Green would make a mean wide receiver though. And Jay Sean Tate played college football, so there's that too.
Yeah.
Or my bad. I don't know if he played college football, but he did play football. So there's that.
There we go. Nice little tidbit, man. I love ending off on some stuff like that. So, guys, appreciate you guys for joining us today. It was an absolutely fantastic episode. Thank you, Jackson. Thank you, AD. Now, before we do go, though, I do have a special announcement. Thank you guys for watching to the very end, by the way. So we're going to be giving away 2 free tickets to the Houston Rockets versus Clippers game March 6th. So if you want to be able to do so, I need you guys to comment below first your expectations for the rest of the season going forward for either a player, players, the team, organization, anything. Just comment below. Let us know. Be sure you also like the video, you subscribe, and you let us know. So I want you to take a picture of your comment and send it to us on the DM Twitter. So you can do that on the account at the H-TownRundown on the X app, or you can do that for the same thing for our Instagram account as well. And that's all we need from you guys. You can get 2 free tickets to a game. It'd be really awesome to give those away. 2 free 99, baby. And how many things are free in this world? Not very many things.
Plus, it's the Clippers game, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, so that's the return of James Harden and Russell Westbrook in the H as teammates back when they were here before. Ooh, that's going to be a hell of a game.
Absolutely. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Be sure to please like and subscribe the channel. Share us around everybody around you. Be sure to follow my boy AD at Bully60. He's got a Instagram and X app or Twitter account for most of you guys out there. You can also follow me. That's Drip 2Ps_GAWD on X and Instagram as well. And be sure to follow my boy Jackson Gatlin. Thank you again for hopping on, man. It was so cool to have you on, man.
Hey, I appreciate being here, but we got to clear something up real quick. I'm never coming back if y'all keep clapping when I'm on the show. This is the most cringe. Like internally, I just die a little bit when y'all do that. You got my voice cracking and everything. Look, I'm just a dude. I like talking ball. I had a blast being able to talk Rockets with you guys. I will come back anytime you guys want me.
Awesome. Definitely. Well, we love to hear that. So looking forward, maybe another special episode. But thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below, man. If you want these free tickets, man, you best make a move. You best make a move quick because they're going hot. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys on the flip side next week. We have another special guest next week, Brad from the Houston Rockets community. He's going to hop on tomorrow or on the next week on Friday, 4 p.m. Central Time. So be sure to jump on and watch us then. Thank you guys. Let me stop talking. Let's get out of here.